Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack. Through this podcast, I'm on a mission to transform lives through primal adventure and to spread my mission of mentorship as conservation. This podcast is powered by Washington Backcountry, a resource for all hunters, both new and old. To find out more about Washington Backcountry, go to wabackcountry.com or search for Washington Backcountry on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. The Soulful Hunter Podcast is also proudly presented by T&K Hunting Gear. If you haven't heard about T&K, then it's about time you do. I've been using T&K gear out in the field and on hunts and have fallen in love with their stuff. T&K is veteran-owned and 100% made in America using only American-made products. All their gear is covered under a lifetime warranty with no questions asked. If it breaks or fails, they will fix it or replace it for free. T&K is your resource for bino harnesses, bow slings, and a lot more amazing gear. For more information about T&K hunting gear, go to tnkhunting.com or search for them on Facebook and Instagram. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Freedom on and stay soulful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soulful Hunter Podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Mack. Today, I am joined by just an awesome person and a pretty much savage and slayer of a hunter. We got Dylan Dowson from OnX Hunt on, and we're dedicating this episode to OnX and talking about the new features and all the things that are happening with them, because when I came into hunting and I learned about OnX, it was an absolute game changer. It revolutionized how I learned how to hunt and all this stuff. And so as a thank you to them, I also want to get them on the podcast and share the good news about their company and all the things that they got going on, but also talk about Dylan and all his cool epic adventures that he's been a part of this year. So Dylan, thank you so much for joining us for an episode.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been a little while. I think last time we were able to talk was that Salt Lake City Expo?
Yep,
I
the
believe.
Hunt Expo, yeah.
Yep. Not only did I get to meet you in person there, we got to sit down and kind of recap the previous season. So
yeah,
it's been a while, but great to catch up.
Maybe we might have to make this an annual event every year.
I'm in.
Pencil me in
next year.
So, Dylan, just for the listeners who did not catch your previous episode that we did a year ago, what is your role within OnX? Who are you? Where from? All that.
Yeah. So my current role with OnX, I basically work with anything Western big game related in the marketing realm. So any Western big game emails going out, any of our Western big game ambassadors that we work with, our social for Western marketing, user acquisition, just basically Western marketing for the hunt product is what I do. I've been with OnX for a little over 5.5 years now. It's crazy every time I say that, time flies. But I started out in customer service actually there, and I was at the time kind of the one and only customer service rep. So a lot has changed, and OnX has grown a ton in the past 5 years. But did that for a couple years. It was a great spot for me to start. I felt like I'd learned the product a ton, just taking phone calls and from people all throughout the country and answering questions and so on and so forth. But transitioned over to marketing a couple years in and just kind of worked my way up a little bit, and now working, like I said, with Western big game and the hunt side. It's
so much fun to, here I am, I've exchanged emails with you before, and then you go from meeting somebody in person and us having some great conversations, we're recording another podcast. But then when I was working out the other day, and I have a treadmill in my garage with a TV on the wall that I can stare at when I zone out, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, there's a familiar face. Hey, there's Dylan, and you start recognizing different people popping up on YouTube videos and all this stuff. Dylan, you've had a heck of a year, and you've been able to travel a lot of different places. Tell the listeners some of the hunts that you've been able to go on and experience this year.
Yeah, definitely. 2020 has been, for me and for hunting purposes, a pretty awesome year. I was born and raised in Montana, live in Western Montana now. That's where OnX is out of, Missoula. Growing up in Eastern Montana, to be completely honest, I really don't typically get out of state. Montana has so much opportunity and so many different seasons and, different species and applications you can put in for. But really, there's always a season, there's always a different species. I could be busy almost year round in Montana. So with that being said, and the opportunities, especially being a resident, I don't typically leave. So most of my hunts are Montana resident based, but this year for a change, I got to expand a little bit. I actually came out to Washington in August for a fall bear hunt, which was a really unique experience. It was great timing because it kind of kicked off my entire season. It was kind of my first hunt of the year. Our archery elk seasons don't start till, it varies a little bit, but September 1st through September 5th. And I came out in August, mid-August, and did a rifle bear hunt in some pretty crazy country. You guys have some gnarly country out there, and I didn't quite realize it. Wasn't fully prepared for the first hunt of the year, but some beautiful country, giant. And yeah, I harvested a bear out over there this fall, so that was that was definitely my first out-of-state bear. I've shot several here in Montana, but first out-of-state bear there. Kicked off the season, then I went right into archery elk in Montana after many days of close calls. Was finally able to get it done with that with my bows. So harvested a bull. And the other big one I got to do, the other huge one I got to do this year was Alaska. We went to Kodiak for Sitka blacktail. So we did 2 days of straight fishing out of Homer. And then we flew to Kodiak, stayed on a boat for, I think it was like 7 days, hunted Sitka blacktail, the fox that you can hunt up there with that deer tag. A lot of people on the trip shot ducks. One guy even harvested a mountain goat because he was an Alaska resident. So we kind of got to be a part of the whole thing, man. It was incredible. Saw a bunch of Kodiak brown bears. Yeah, it was just a dream come true trip. And to be honest, I didn't really know about it. It kind of came up not last minute, but I think it was like 3 months before we left when I heard about it. And so it kind of came up last minute, I guess. And yeah, it's just one of those things I've always wanted to get to Alaska, but I thought it would be, someday I'm going to Alaska. I don't know when, I don't know what for, but someday I will get to Alaska. And it just kind of came up out of the blue this year and all worked out. So it was a pretty incredible trip. And then basically straight from there, I came home and started deer hunting. So it was a long, long fall, but pretty awesome one.
Dude, you just getting to follow you with social media and all the things that you've been a part of, it is awesome. And I would have to agree that the state of Washington is like, the people that live here say the hunting's horrible compared to how it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And yet at the same time, I feel like it's America's best kept secret because other than moose, mountain goat, and sheep, you can hunt everything over the counter here. We have elk.
Yeah,
you can hunt branch antlered bulls or eastern Rocky Mountain elk. We got 3 types of deer, one of the best waterfowl states in the nation. I mean, we have it all here, and yet no one ever talks about it. And it's real.
I'm gonna start talking about it. I'll send all the that come to Montana to Washington. It's like, no, but really, I mean, joking aside, I hear the same thing in Montana, right? Like, every story you hear is like, it's not what it used to be. There used to be 340 bulls running around everywhere, and there was a 190-inch mule deer running around everywhere, and now it's, but really, like, the opportunity is there. But yeah, it definitely opened my eyes to Washington. Just being out there it was like an extended weekend is all I really spent. But the country was incredible. Just the scenery and the wildlife and stuff. Like, even if it wasn't a successful trip, like, just being there and hiking in, the country I was in would be well worth, the drive. And I think it was like $180 bear tag or whatever it was, maybe a little bit more than that. But yeah, it was definitely an awesome trip.
See, and that's one of the things that I want to promote for people is, number one, I believe that bear hunting is one of the most special types of hunts that you can go on. The time of year, the places it takes you. You can actually now hunt 2 bears. I filled both bear tags this year here in the state. It's not very expensive. And it's a great way, especially with the mentorship side, is bear hunting is a great way to introduce people to hunting, especially the backcountry style hunting, because it's not so much pressure. There's a lot of hours in the day,
Yeah, it's exciting. And, especially like the country we were in, and I'm sure you've hunted over there. And even here in Montana, the one thing I really like about bear hunting, the more I do it, is like it's not slower pace because you glass all day and when you see when it's go time and it can be a lot of work, but it's a lot of time behind the glass and like sitting in one spot and taking everything in and trying to find a bear and really just sitting there and waiting. It's like there's a bear here. It's just like when is it going to step out? When am I going to see it? And
Right.
I think for me, the reason I enjoy it so much is it forces you to kind of like slow down. Like you don't have to constantly be hiking and constantly be, calling. And don't get me wrong, like my passion is archery elk, and I don't think there's anything really better than bugling at a bull elk that's going to respond to you. But bear hunting is it's unique. Like you said, it's a little bit less pressure for some reason. Yeah, super super awesome hunt, especially for people looking to get into it.
Man, that's so cool. So here you are, you smashed an absolute bull of a lifetime last year, and you doubled up. You went back-to-back years on shooting bull elk. That
Yeah,
that's impressive.
I'm actually so this year was four. So four in a row with the bow, which is definitely the longest streak I've had as far as elk goes. But
Wow.
I mean, nothing really holds a candle to that bull last year, but kind of different circumstances, with that opportunity I had last year, and this year was public land grinding a little bit more. But yeah, I mean it's awesome. I was joking the other day, actually before I shot my mule deer this year, that the freezer's not overflowing, but it's dang close.
Dude, I hear you, man. I mean, first world problems, right? That
Yeah,
I, I have to buy a new
especially on a
freezer.
year like yeah, especially on a year like this, like it's pretty crazy what's going on right now. And a lot of people, initially with 2020, it's like, meat shortage and this, that, and the other. And I'm out there like trying to figure out how I can fit another freezer in my garage. I don't have any more room.
Dude, it's you know what, but that's the blessing of being a hunter because not only do you provide for yourself and your family, you get to provide for your community. Because
Yep.
I'm sure it's super rewarding for you to when you either have a friend come over or your neighbors and you're like, "Hey, would you guys like some meat?" Like,
Yep.
here you go. I always feel so excited to be able to hand off my meat to other people so that they can eat it as well.
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, dude, that is awesome. All right, so let's dive in a little bit of OnX. And the last time we had you on here, it was more of an intro for people who did never heard of OnX and how special this mapping software is. The ironic thing is you guys started out more as like a GPS chip that you insert,
Yep.
and I feel like technology has completely gone away from that. You don't ever really see people carrying Garmin GPS
No.
navigations anymore.
They're still out there. I mean, we actually sell a surprising number of chips still, but yeah, I mean, it's changed so much. We really don't market that product much, and everybody these days has a smartphone in their pocket for various reasons, whether it be photos or just the habit of having it. So really the app, it's just so much more. You can do so much more with it. You're not limited to your little 1 inch by 2 inch Garmin screen with, just not very much detail on there. So now with the app, obviously you get aerial imagery included and you can customize the map. So one of the things with the first version with the chips is kind of what you see is what you get, right? On the Garmin's, where the phone, if I don't want to see a particular piece of land, or if I don't want to see public land, or if I don't want to see the historic wildfires, I just go in the app and turn it off. So it's a lot more customizable.
I love it. Okay, so the new thing for 2020 this year for the Hunt app was 3D mapping.
Yep.
And I learned a lot last year when you said, "Hey, you have saved downloaded offline maps. Make sure to delete those and refresh them with your new mapping." That blew me away. I was like, "Dude, that's genius." I don't know why I never thought about that, but that's a really
Yeah.
good tip to make sure you clear your old offline maps and then resave new updated ones.
Well, and now even since we spoke, we've made a ton of improvements to the save maps. So now you can do a lot of different things. So you can actually remove them. So say you have a bunch of maps for Montana, but you're not coming to Montana within this next year. You can go to all those maps and not delete them, like completely remove them, but you can remove them from the app. So it's A, not taking up storage on your phone while you don't need it. But then B, when you draw Montana or when you want to come back to Montana, they're still loaded up in your saved maps. You can just go there and hit, download, and it will just re-download that. So that's another big one. The other big one too, instead of deleting and resaving like we talked about last time, it'll actually notify you when there's an update available on that same map. So then you just tap it and it re-downloads it for you. So it's a lot easier process. You don't have to go back in the map now and find, okay, where was I exactly? It's the same maps. You just re-download them. And then kind of the third big update with that since we spoke last is you can download as many maps as you want now at the same time. So before you'd have to go in, find your area, save that area. Once it's saved to your phone, then you can move over, save another one, etc. And it kind of was a little bit of a tedious process. Now you can go in and I could queue up like 80 maps and just leave my phone on and it will download one after the other. So, I'll do that before bed sometimes. When I went to Alaska this year, I didn't really know which part of Kodiak we were going to be hunting. Like I knew generally where we might end up and, roundabout area. So I ended up saving like half of the island of Kodiak, which is a big island. And yeah, I remember one night I just laid in bed and I, had Wi-Fi, kept my phone screen on and queued up all those maps and then just laid it on a charger next to me and it downloaded all night and I didn't have to worry about it. Before that process would have taken me hours of, download one, move over, download another, move over, download another. So yeah, lots of updates in that regard too.
That is so awesome. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people who have used OnX and hear this podcast might be in the same situation as me, but there's a lot of times where you're already on the road and you're like, oh crap, I forgot to save my offline map, and you're quickly fighting to download before you run out of cell service or that type of thing. And so so the fact that you guys can stack them and queue them for downloads, big help. That's huge.
And that actually just reminded me of another one that in my mind isn't quite as big, but we've all been there. Just like you said, we're losing service and we hope and pray that it downloads and hits 100 by the time we get there. Before, with this upgrade, you would download it, but if you say you were at 85%, but when you hit no service, that map was just failed, right? Like you just didn't have anything. It was either 0 or 100%, and then you could use it. Well, now say you're at 85% and you lose service, you still have the 85% of that area downloaded. So it's for that exact case scenario like we've all been in. It's, you lose service as you're saving a map, rush late, and you're like, oh man, it didn't work at all. But here, like, you might be missing the bottom portion or whatever it is, but you're still going to have that 85%.
Yeah, dude, that is awesome, and I'm really glad to know that. Hope everyone they should be listening to this. The helpful hints of OnX right here. I love it.
There's a lot of little things like that, that we're constantly updating, and we're updating. Big features like 3D kind of overshadow some of those, and a lot of them are on the back end anyways that we don't really communicate a ton about. Just especially for the new users, they don't really know any different, right? Like they download the app and that's just how it is. But for the folks who've had it for a few years, like yourself, and have had a few of those times where you have to save multiple maps and lose service and this, that, and the other, like a lot of new things have came.
Man, that's so cool. I mean, I have been in that situation more often than not, and so it is awesome that you guys and your company is thinking about that. You're an end user yourself, and so you're constantly getting feedback being like, oh, I wish it would have done this, or I wish it would have done that. And that you guys, because you use your own product, you're able to fix that.
Yeah, exactly. I like to call it product testing.
Just constantly product testing.
Yeah,
I love it. So talk a little bit about 3D maps. So I understand when I'm on my phone and doing the fingers and you can pull it and twist it and all that. On a computer, I feel like it's, for me personally, maybe I'm just being an end user dork, but I have a hard time getting it to flow fluidly on a computer. Is that an issue that you guys have noticed or seen?
I don't. I haven't personally. Honestly, I prefer to use it on the computer. It's a little bit more, I'm not going to say responsive, but it shows 3D in a little bit more detail on the computer. Essentially, when we launched 3D, we knew it wasn't going to be the end result 3D that we wanted it to be. We wanted to get it out there and get the users 3D because it's valuable, and we realized that. But honestly, we launched our 3D and then we immediately started working on it. So we're right now on the back end, working on some new features, some new ways to do it, and we hope to release that here in the near future, where it's going to be a lot better experience whether you're on your phone or the computer. Layers, for example, right now in 3D mode, you can't turn on and off layers. That's all coming soon. So essentially, with the 3D, like I said, we wanted to get it out there, get people using it, and get feedback of what people liked and didn't like about it. But we're constantly in the process of working on improving it. So things like the computer, I mean, I have heard a few different cases where guys, if they're not using like a mouse or if they're doing it a certain way, they're having some issues. But personally, I prefer it on the computer, like I said, over
Yeah,
the phone.
right.
Yeah, I find it a little bit more helpful on the computer for now.
Yeah. Can you save an offline map in 3D?
Not yet.
Not yet. That's going to still be in the works.
Yep. Yep. So like I said, 3D right now, it's still usable. I used 3D a lot when I was scouting to come out bear hunting in Washington. That was kind of the time when we were looking at releasing it, and I had access to it, but the users didn't quite yet. So I was using it quite a bit for like that hunt. And what's really cool too is I can look back at Kodiak in 3D, and I can see all my waypoints and tracks and stuff in 3D, and it's just kind of a cool visual to replay those hunts and stuff, after the fact, looking at the computer and then also scouting, not necessarily for Kodiak. I probably won't be there for, I don't know, hopefully I go there. We'll see. But,
Right.
for like my mule deer hunt in Montana, I can look at that in 3D and see, where I shot my buck and where I saw the other bucks and the ridges I hiked and everything and paint a pretty cool picture.
That's awesome. Well, one of the cool things that I feel like the 3D is very beneficial is not necessarily on the front end of hunts, but on the back end of hunts for learning purposes. Because all of a sudden, if someone's not very good at reading a topographical map and understanding the elevation lines and all that, all of a sudden you find a bench and you don't realize it's a bench, but then you put it in 3D and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense why I saw
Yeah.
a sign here or a bed here and not in
Yeah.
these other locations. And it helps, it's a teaching moment for people to understand how to read maps a whole lot more.
For sure. Yeah. Or, I wonder where that bull was bugling every day, midday. And then you look at it in 3D and there's a nice little bench midway down the mountain. It's like, oh, I bet it was there,
Right.
and it's one of those things where if you are fluent reading a topographic map, like it makes sense. Right. But if you're not, I've talked to a lot of people that just, aren't familiar with it. And it's a little bit different for me in the sense that I work for a mapping company. Like I know how to look at a topo map and figure out, what's a bench, what's a ridge. But for some people, it just doesn't click. And that's where kind of 3D comes into play. And even with the topo, like 3D is still great and it's still useful and cool. It's also cool, kind of cool just to look at in 3D.
Oh yeah, for sure. I will say that one of the things that I have gotten feedback on, it could be OnX only, it could just be maps in general. I don't really know, but one of the
Yeah.
things is that it was very hard to tell how steep something was within the app. And obviously, elevation lines are the closer they are, the steeper it is.
Yep.
But until you're in that location, you're like, "Oh, it's a lot steeper than what I even thought it was." And I actually had that happen to me this year on a high buck hunt here in the state of Washington, where I was planning on working up this mountainside and getting up to this alpine meadow where I saw just this monster buck, and the mountain beat me down. I was like, dude, I did
Yeah.
not realize it was this steep trying to get up there. You take a step up, you slide 10 feet down. And I was like, all right. So we had to call an audible and we had a great hunt, my buddy Tony and I, but But yeah, we got beat by the mountain with
Yeah.
not expecting it to be as steep as it was.
It's always steeper in person. That's just like a general rule of thumb I tell people is like it's always steeper in person. No matter what you think, it's going to be worse in person. Um, you can only put those topo lines so close to each other, and even in 3D, sometimes I think, especially in 3D, you look at something and you're like, plan out your hike, and you're like, oh, I'll just hike up that ridge and then hit that saddle and hike up that other ridge. You get to that spot in person, you look up and you're like, oh, like that is a little bit more intense than what I pictured. So it's just always steeper in person.
Man, that's so wild. And so true. It blows me away. Okay, so let's move into a little bit of what OnX is doing outside of the Hunt app. So the Hunt app is obviously your flagship, your mainstay. That's what put you guys uh, quote unquote on the map.
Yep.
you know, but this year you guys have branched out, and there is OnX Trails and Roads, and what is it called? Explore,
OnX
the
off.
Explore off-road app.
Yep. So OnX off road. That one's been around for a little while now. Essentially, for the Hunt users or people familiar with Hunt, it's very similar map style. The app kind of looks the same. It's just got data more geared toward the Jeepers and the dirt bikers and the side by side drivers. A little bit different data there. So instead of pulling up the app and seeing Hunt game management units, they're going to pull up the app and see roads and trails that are open for their particular activities. So like if I have dirt bike selected, I'm going to look at a surrounding area or an area I want to go ride in, and see different trails, and get more trail data. This one's open to a side by side. This is a dirt bike. Here's the closure dates on this one, etc. So, a lot of the same data, but also different data for that niche. So that one's been pretty cool. And I kind of grew up riding dirt bikes as well. So I don't currently have one, but it's one of those things. It's another passion of mine is dirt biking, and I like side by side driving and all sorts of different things there. So that one's kind of a cool one for me as well. But we also recently, as like 2 days ago, launched our third one, which is OnX Backcountry. And Backcountry is more tailored toward like the adventure through hiker and maybe a backcountry skier, that type of genre and data there. So three apps now, which is super exciting for OnX. Like you said, we've been around for a little over 10 years. Actually, yeah, a little over 10 years. And the Hunt side of things, we're very well known. Off-road is growing really quickly, and then backcountry is just starting out. So yeah, it's pretty awesome time for OnX.
That's so cool. Now, just for listeners' sake, these are all separate memberships, though, right?
Yep, yep,
So
they
if
are.
you have an OnX Hunt membership, it doesn't work for these other ones. And are they different applications you actually download to your phone?
Yep, they are.
Okay,
Yep,
so
yeah,
they all
definitely.
stand alone. That is
Yep,
that is awesome. So what do you, Dylan? It's December 2020, man. 2020 has been a great year for hunting.
yep.
What do you got planned if all things continue the way they have for us? And obviously, we want to put hope in the future. What's on the horizon for you guys?
Yeah, the biggest thing outside of the hunting world is definitely a little one due in May of 2021. So that's some really exciting news for us and the Dowson family here.
Heck yeah, welcome. Dude, fatherhood is one of the best gifts that you could ever be given, and I can't wait to see when you enter into it fully, and it's going to be a life changer, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm excited. We're both super excited. Yeah, it's crazy what can change in a year. We got married this year and decided to start a family pretty quick. So yeah, it's going to be pretty awesome. And it's a boy, so not to say if it was a girl, we wouldn't be hunting just as much, because I know if and when I have a girl, we'll be out in the woods too. But yeah, no, it's pretty exciting.
It was pretty special being able to follow along on your social media journey to see you go out on your mule deer hunt, and then all of a sudden you took your wife out, and
Yep.
she filled her tag, and the next thing I know, there's a little pair of boots on social media, and I'm like, yeah, Dylan, dude,
Yep.
the family is being blessed this year, man.
Yeah, no, it really is. Thank you. I appreciate that a ton. And yeah, no, that buck my wife shot is actually getting European right now, and that's going to be hanging in the nursery for sure because baby was along for that one. So
Yes, that is so awesome. Okay, so that when we have another episode in let's say another year, how do you feel hunting is going to be, or what is it going to be like for you? And now that your wife's a hunter as well,
yep,
how are you guys going to balance that? What have you guys talked about that yet?
that's a great question. No, we haven't. We'll we'll see. She hunts. Not quite as crazy about it as I am, thankfully, because I don't know if that would work out. But no, it's going to be interesting for sure. It's going to be a little bit harder to. It's going to be a lot harder to leave, especially like that Kodiak trip I did this year. I was gone for 2 weeks. So that's going to be a lot harder to do trips like that. I'm glad I went to Alaska this year because if it was next year, I'm not sure that it would have worked out. But yeah, no, it's going to be exciting, and it's going to come with its challenges as far as hunting. But give it a few years, and he'll be tagging along. So
Heck
yeah,
yeah. I took my middle son out. Well, actually, I take my older two on different occasions. We went grouse hunting this year. We got to shoot a grouse, and
nice.
they were super jacked about that. I would highly recommend the Osprey kids backpacks.
Okay.
Like the baby Bluetooth for kiddos, man. You put them in
Yeah.
there and you're just heading down the trail. My kids, they learned how to drink out of a platypus hose, just,
That's awesome.
so I didn't have to constantly hand them the water bottle and all
Yeah,
that. So, dude,
that's cool.
uh,
You'll have to send me a link to that thing.
yeah, an experienced father tip one to another. So I love it. Well, Dylan, thank you so much for joining us for an episode of the Soulful Hunter podcast, man. I know specifically that OnX is a brand that I will always support. You guys changed my hunting career by the product in which you put out. And just, I'm thankful. I'm grateful, man. And I believe that you guys can't outgive good. And here you are doing your thing and putting good out into the world, and you're getting rewarded in multiple ways. So it's
Yeah,
fun to
thank
see.
you. Yeah, no, it's been great to catch up with you, and we'll have to catch up soon, whether or not we're on a podcast. But yeah, we might as well just pencil in December of 2021, or who knows? By then, maybe we'll be at trade shows again, and we can meet up in early 22. But yeah, no, I appreciate the chance to hop on and catch up with you, and chat about OnX. We appreciate all the support and
Yeah.
everything.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, we got to get you back out to the state of Washington for a hunt, whether it's a black bear, a deer, elk, whatever. We got
Yeah,
to
let's do it.
mix it up together.
Let's do it.
All right. So for the listeners, where can they find OnX Hunt and all that? But also, where can they follow you on social media as well?
Cool. Yeah, OnX. I mean, it's pretty tough to miss if you Google OnX Hunt. But if you're looking for the app, just go to the App Store on your phone, Google Play Store, and search for OnX Hunt. Get the app downloaded. It's free 7-day trial, risk free there. And then as far as social media goes, OnX Hunt on Instagram, Facebook, onxmaps.com is the website. And then my personal one is first, middle, last name. So Dylan.hunter.dowson. Instagram is probably the best one there for you.
Heck yeah, dude! Instagram's awesome. I was just having a conversation with a buddy the other day, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. Facebook
Mm-hmm.
gets inundated with a lot of other stuff, but if you want
Yep.
to just look at some cool pics, and then every now and then, go through the description and what people write about it, I feel like you get a lot more from it than just on
Yeah.
Facebook or Twitter or different stuff like
Same.
that.
Especially with the hunting industry. I mean, that's what I personally prefer.
Yeah, I love it. Dylan, thank you so much for joining us. Listeners, go check out Dylan's journey, and you can see all the cool animals that he's gotten to lay down this year and in years past. As always, everybody, freedom on and stay soulful. If you enjoyed today's podcast, I'd love it if you could go ahead and give this a rating as well as subscribe. Also, you can check us out on Instagram under the Soulful Hunter Podcast. Make sure to tag us in pictures and posts and use the hashtag Soulful Hunter. To find out more about the Soulful Hunter Podcast, go to soulfulhunter.com and be sure to follow the podcast as we are going to be bringing you a lot of great information, insight, and changing lives through primal adventure. I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. Stay tuned and stay soulful.